And we are live. Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you. I sense your energy. I sense your spirit. I sense your style out there. Hello, every beautiful body out there. My name is Blair G. Hervey. I am the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. As always, I'm joined by my colorful co-host, my bestie, my soul friend of 20 plus years, The Corporate Strategist, independent consultant, DEIBA speaker, self-proclaimed diversity geek, D'Angelo Crane. Say hello, D'Angelo.
Hello, Triple B. I know you're like, what does Triple B stand for? It stands for Big Boss Blur. What? I know you do. All right. I am always excited to bring a little love, light, and laughter to the Black Diva Collective stage, as always. So it's going to be a fun day today. And you know, I'm in the office when I'm dressed with extra blazer and all this shenanigans on. Okay, I'll have to tell you about that in a minute. But I am here and ready for a very fun show.
Well, hopefully he's not code switching today, y'all. He just got on a blazer because he wants to. Amen. But if so, we know that sometimes it's for survival, so we can talk about that as well. But you know what? We also want to extend a very big welcome to our guest, Andre Blasingame. We are so excited to have you. Hello, and thank you for being here.
What's going on, good people? I am happy to be here too. I appreciate the invite. Let's go.
No problem. Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to the Black Diva Collective Live. D'Angelo, as always, with your sunny self, you want to go ahead and shine look, see, that's why you don't say stuff off script. Shine a light of sunshine, a ray of sunshine on us. It's okay.
Hey, that's okay. I was going with you. I was just going to follow you right there.
We
Yes.
like this.
I was leaning into it. I was like, what's she going to say? But yes, this is a moment where we are allowed to share our light. Are we allowed to share that what has dimmed our light today, right? With our art of the check-in. And basically it's where we take a moment to really dig a little deeper and ask how our guests are feeling and one another is feeling. And why do we do this? Because we're asking that leaders start to practice this each and every day as you're working with your colleagues and your employees. And it's going to help you build some trust, some empathy, and gain some better understanding of what's going on with your employees. And so we're going to practice that here. So, Chef, Andre, how's your heart? How's your mind? How's your soul? How are you feeling today?
Man, we are all in one accord today, my friend. This has been an outstanding, blessed, and blissful day. And I'm just ready to just jump in and give y'all the content that you need, give the people what they need, to be successful, especially dealing in the diversity space. So I'm ready. Let's go.
I love that. I have to tell you all, Andre is from Louisville, so you all can understand this great energy that's happening right now. This Louisville, when Louisville connects to this explosive, just this energy. What? Okay, Blair, how's your mind, your soul, your heart, and your hair today? Because you give us different hairstyles every day. I feel like you have a whole team of people over there that are braiding and twisting and doing all kinds of things before you come on the show.
You know what? No, it is just me, myself, and I. And that's why she throws on a cute little, blouse, honey, a little hoodie, because I spent so much time and like, how can I lay this? But yes, I love a good little hairstyle. I'm feeling great. My head is great. My hair is great. This smile is smiling, honey. I got my Invisalign back together. So I'm feeling super fantastic. I cannot complain, not one bit. D'Angelo, how are you today? How's your head? How's your heart? That blazer is giving me everything. So I'm glad to see you in your Sunday best.
Well, thank you. I will give my shout out right now, actually, because I can talk about what just happened. So we have a new wonderful young man who's working with our organization, so Starling Jaquan, and he's a Gen Z who just got out of college, and he's leading up some of our efforts with our business resource group, particularly with our Black Culture Network. And today he led a conversation that we haven't had at this organization at all about being Black and queer in the workplace. And so I was on a panel discussion along with our our VP of Inclusion Diversity and Chief Sustainability Officer, Stephanie Turner, and also one of my great colleagues, Jessica Howard Jackson. I think I said her name right. And who was on the panel with me as well. And Starling was our moderator, and we just had a really great conversation. So that's why I'm a little dressed up today. But it was I'm still on a high that we were able to share our vulnerability and truths with our organization to talk about the intersectionality of being Black and gay and the triumphs and trials, just like we did yesterday on this stage. So that's what I did today, and I'm dressed up a little bit. But believe me, as soon as this is over with, I'm taking this jacket right off. Yes, but I'm still on high from that, and that's my shout out of the day. Okay.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I am super proud of you. I'm super proud of that young man as well, and I'm sure you are giving him tons of game, mentoring him, and being the light that he needs as well. So Always proud of you. Now, let's get into this great conversation, this valuable conversation. We're going to be blasted with a little game from Andre, blasting game. I'm sure you've heard that a million times before. If you are not familiar with Andre, Andre also goes by Chef. He is a chef. He's a coach and consultant. Born in Louisville, Kentucky. That's how you know he's from there, because we all say it like our mouth is full, and resides in Dallas, Texas. Chef has 28 years in hospitality and service. He's a world food champ, Sam's and Walmart Super Chef, 2 times national Pro Start champion coach, and change agent for his people. Chef is also the owner of Heavenly Catering, international coaching, catering, and consulting. So you have to break that down for us. I love that you have this montage of titles and work that you're doing, but it all seems to stem from serving people. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this work and how you ended up with these 3 C's as titles.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. It's always weird when I hear accolades about myself, because I'm just like, is that really me, right? But the way I got started actually was in Louisville, Kentucky. My first job was at a place at St. Matthew's Mall. You guys probably may or may not remember.
We do.
There used to be a sandwich shop in there called the Yeo Sandwich Shop. It was right across from the McDonald's that was in the food court. And I began baking bread for them after school. And so in baking fresh bread for them to have for the next day, I just immersed myself into the restaurant industry. Went on to the University of Houston for hotel and restaurant management. Went on to Le Cordon Bleu to become a culinary chef. Had a great opportunity at my high school, Shawnee High School. We had the travel and tourism program where we got to travel internationally to a lot of different places. And I really got exposed to food when I was down in Barbados in the islands. 16 years old, grew up in the West End of Louisville. Most of us didn't get that opportunity to travel international before we got old enough to get out of the city, right? So going down there and getting immersed into the culture of the Caribbean food, it just took me to another level. Fast forward to, having the opportunity to be a chef at Walt Disney World down and live in Orlando for about a year for my internship, and then moving on and started my catering company. And for the first 10 years, it was all catering based. Everything was about, weddings, anniversaries, food, big, pretty displays. Everything was over the top in the way we did catering. About 6 years ago, I got into consulting restaurants and how to build from food trucks to starting a catering company, et cetera, et cetera. And so that turned into individual coaching. So that's how the 3 C's came about. And it's all in the restaurant space. So I do majority of my consulting with restaurants, food trucks, business owners, company owners, franchisors on how to run an efficient restaurant or an efficient food business, period. And then the coaching side came in when people were asking for individual time. And so that's how it turned into 3 C's. It went from one company to Heavenly Catering International, because I have clients from here all the way to Dubai. And so in having that, we changed the name to Heavenly Catering International and added the coaching and consulting component, because they are just as important as what we started off with catering. And just about everything I do revolves around food. So that's how the 3 C's came up.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I just want to let you know that there's a lot of love already in the comments. Jimmy says, West End of Louisville, stand up. We got 18th in Kentucky. We got C&G representing. Where did you say that you grew up, Andre?
39th and Market, Trey Nina. Let's go.
Trey Nina. Excellent. Well, there's a lot of greatness that comes out of that city, and I'm interested in hearing more about this conversation. D'Angelo, can you take us right into it?
Yeah, I mean, I was ready to go so many different places. I will tell you, it's interesting we're having this conversation because Blair and I met at a restaurant, and we're often talking about what do restaurants need to do better to cultivate a culture of belonging, right? And you can do that right off the bat when you're in the makeup and DNA of building a sustainable restaurant, right? And so the quote is, the courageous conversation is the one you don't want to have, David White. And I often think about how restaurants and organizations need to shift and change, but they're scared to have these deeper conversations that they need to have. So I think this is timely because you're working in an industry where you're having rich conversations all the time. And are they the right conversations? And what do some of the deeper conversations that we need to have that we're not having? So that's what we're talking about today, is really getting into courageous conversations, which I I want to even get rid of the moniker courageous, because they shouldn't be courageous. They should just be the way of life. But for today's context, that's what we're talking about. So talk to me a little bit about, when you think about courageous conversations, when you're talking to your coaching clients or talking to uh, people who are starting new restaurants, what are some of the conversations that you're having with them about creating a safe space of belonging and a welcoming atmosphere for their employees?
Well, one of the things that I talk to them about in having a welcoming atmosphere is being able to understand the different cultural backgrounds. So if you've ever been to Dallas, Dallas is probably one of the top 5 cities of being a melting pot. So there's quite a few cultures that are here. My neighborhood alone, there's 17 different cultures, from West Indian to African to Australian, and we all work together and commune together. And one of the first things that I tell them is that understand the culture of your people. Texas is widely Hispanic, quite a few Black people here as well. But most of the people that are in charge are, the fair skinned people. I call them the light skinned Black people, because white people is too much, because they think they have an entitlement. But that's another conversation. What I explain to them is that you have to understand and develop the culture of the people that are around you. You have to learn it. Not telling you to immerse in it or to become a part of it, but at least get some cultural understandings when it comes to how you address somebody, when you talk to somebody. And in addition to that, look at the different behavioral styles, because we all respond differently to the same words, right? And there's 4 common behavioral styles that encompass in this, which comes from being decisive, which is somebody that's cautious, someone that's a complete team player, and then your people that are extremely outgoing. You can say the same thing to somebody that's an introvert, and they take it totally different than somebody that's an extrovert. So if you're not finding out the cultural background of your staff, and if you're not having a diverse staff, it's going to limit your ability to lead. As much as I love my people, I can't have a completely Black staff. I don't want anybody that's white to have a completely white staff, because see, then you get pigeonholed into not understanding other cultures when you have people come into the restaurant or come into your place of business, and then your team doesn't know how to handle those different cultures, right? And in explaining that, a lot of them get it. It's like, it's okay to go Google, the Muslim culture. It's okay to go Google and find out about the LGBTQ community, right? It's okay to go back and visit, what women's rights are going on, because the more you're educated as a leader, the more open and responsive you can be when you get some of those challenging questions that you may not have dealt with. I got a good friend of mine, Emily Bopp, that lives in Indiana. She grew up the first 20 years of her life never seeing a Black person ever in her neighborhood. Now, you guys are from Kentucky, Indiana, and it's not far-fetched, right? That she never saw a Black person for 20 years in the area that she grew up. But we run this summit called the Merge Summit, where we have a racial reality conversations with all white executives and all Black executives. Now, we're talking about people that are doctorates, doctors that have high degrees, CEOs and CFOs of companies, to have those conversations. And that's why I chose Courageous Conversations, because it's usually harder for upper management to really talk to anybody that's middle or below. And so why not we get all the successful Black people and successful white people and really talk about the fact that you grew up not knowing what the Black culture was, or for us as Black people growing up not knowing that they didn't deal with the race issue, right? Mm-hmm. We dealt with it. And from their perspective, we've got to hear their stories and their side so we can bring a balance. So that's a lot of things that I teach, my restaurateurs, because, you get more information when you break bread over food. That's a communal thing. 100% of people eat, from the lowest poor person to the richest person. 100% of people eat. And if you can come together and break bread, you can come together and have a conversation.
That's well said. I mean, yeah, we've had lots of conversations over food. This is very, very true between D'Angelo and I. I love that you shared, a little bit about your background. So as it relates to, geography, we have a lot in common, Chef. But I was born in Dallas, Texas. I was born actually in Richardson, so north side, right?
I live in Richardson. You all right?
You know what? Too many commonalities here.
It's too many commonalities that happened today. Literally, all my kids went to Richardson School District and graduated from Richardson High School.
No way! I love this so much. Okay.
Yep.
So born in Richardson, right? And I spent the first 12 years of my life in Dallas, Texas. And then I had to move to Louisville, Kentucky. And when I moved there, I remember one of my very first friends, not D'Angelo. I actually have friends before D'Angelo, y'all. But one of my first friends asked me, I'll never forget, she approached me when I was in middle school at TMS, and she was just like, so which one do you like better, Dallas or Louisville? Mind you, I had just gotten there, y'all. And I was just like, well, I don't know. I mean, probably Dallas. That's where I was born, you know? And I felt like what she was attempting to do was trying to relate to me, connect to me, or spark some type of conversation. But what I realized in that moment, of course, we were young people, we were in the 7th grade. We weren't equipped to have that courageous conversation. And sometimes when you're not equipped to have that courageous conversation, that it can impact seemingly your character. And then from then on, it can have a major impact on your relationships and the connections that you have with people as time goes on. So my question to you is, how can people better equip themselves to have these courageous conversations, even when they're not ready?
I've been asked that question several times. You're never ready. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you, because you do not know what the other person has dealt with. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I would say, in order to start a courageous conversation with anyone that's of the opposite, sex, that's the opposite, lifestyle, that's an opposite, racial barrier, whatever it is, right? Start with the listening factor, right? Let them vent, because most conversations usually is one person that's angry about something and one person that doesn't understand. That's usually what it is. And I'm going to say it again. Like I said, usually black people and black people are angry. White people don't understand why. Makes sense, right? You need to get on the side of listening, especially for us who have a deep-rooted anger for the oppressors that have happened with slavery here in the United States and even, overseas, right? We've got to get to that point where we're going to listen effectively to have a relaxed response, not a sparked response out of the 400 years of turmoil that has happened here in the United States. Because a lot of times they don't understand, because they come from privilege, or they've come from being sheltered from the experiences of people of color, right? And because of that, they really don't understand. And having some of these conversations with these 50, 60, 70-year-old CEOs, I'm like, how do you not understand? I say, well, if you were born in 1940 for the last, or 1950 for the last 60, 70 years, and you're a white male, you're at the top of the food chain in the United States. So I can see how you can't see a D'Angelo who is, who is LGBTQ, right? I can see how you don't see how his plight as a black man is even more perplexed because of his lifestyle choice than it would be for a white male that was gay, right? And we don't take the time to actually listen. We're so quick, and these are people, I'm talking about people that are angry, not just black people, the angry people. They're so quick to defend and be on the defensive about where they stand, that they don't take the time to listen empathetically to understand that there is a problem. And because we don't want to talk about it, it always continues to be a clash. Mm-hmm. So I would always say anybody will start with listening. One starting question you would say, tell me about your life. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your background. Tell me about your upbringing. Nothing that has to do with racial disparity, nothing that has to do with gender, anything like that. Tell me about you and the way you grew up. Mm-hmm. And take that time to listen, soak it in, and then be like, okay, that would make sense if you grew up, like y'all from Kentucky, black and white when I was growing up. That was it, right? And so I didn't understand the other side of the tracks, as they would call it, until I sat down with a good friend of mine, and I call white people counterparts. So if you hear me say counterparts, that's who I'm referring to. Talk to a good friend of mine, having that conversation. I was like, what was it like growing up in Fern Creek? I grew up in the West End, right? And he just was telling me, he was like, we didn't have any gas stations that were close. There were no liquor stores that were close. Our church was 10 miles from the house. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, there's a liquor store every corner where I live. There's a convenience store within walking distance. There's a church within walking distance. I don't understand that life or understand it. And the more I got to talking to him, I was like, you know what? We're really not that much different. We were both sheltered by our parents and grandparents with their view of the way society is. So that would be a start. Ask their background and listen.
Yeah, I think you said a whole lot there. I heard from that it's about listening to understand, which is one of the things we live by here at my organization when we think about rules of engagement. Is just, like I said, listening to understand and acting with positive intent. But the other thing I think that you said there about your parents keeping you sheltered, right? I wonder how, if we looked at it, view it differently, maybe it was not sheltered, maybe they were trying to keep you safe. And so how would you talk to a leader about creating a safe space to have these type of conversations? Because ultimately, that's the other thing, is that it's awkward when someone just comes to you and starts asking you questions and they've never done that before. Like, I don't know you. I don't want to share my life with you. You've never even said hi to me on most days, right? You don't even greet me in meetings. So how should a leader go about cultivating a safe space to be able to have these conversations that are needed? And what does that look like when they're doing it better to creating this space?
Well, what I advise, owners and restaurant owners and business owners in general, when you're wanting to create a safe space, one of the first things you want to do is find someone that is safe for you so you can have that conversation. For instance, most of us have someone that we could go to, that we could talk to about issues that we have with ourselves or issues with another coworker, subordinate, neighbor that could be of the same mindset, right? It's almost like getting a coach, if you will, and being able to cultivate and role play, if you will, that safe conversation before you go have it with that particular person, right? Mm-hmm. Because it gives you more fuel from a different perspective, because you could be thinking one way. You go talk to somebody trusted that you trust, that you feel safe to say, you know what, I don't like this person because of their color. I don't like this person because of their, gender choice. I don't like this person for X, Y, and Z. How do you feel about that? Mm-hmm. And they could give you perspectives on having a safe way to approach it and make you feel safe. And then the other thing, of course, is always meditation. I always tell people, if you want to get into a safe space, 20 to 25 deep breaths and actually get the oxygen going into your body will create a zenful conversation, no matter how heated it gets. But that's where I always start. Find an advisor or somebody that you trust that makes you feel safe. Get some information off of them and role play with them before you go have that conversation. And then be prepared to whoever you're talking to. Like, if you know you're going to talk to somebody Black, you can research stuff there. You're talking to somebody Native American. You're talking to somebody that's, French and Black that doesn't identify as African American, right? Take that time to do a little bit of research background, and don't go way left and try to be. Y'all seen those movies where you got the white guy that try to turn his hat on backwards and try to speak hip hop, right? It was like, hip hop's not a language, my friend. You're doing too much. You didn't talk to anybody in advice before you had this conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be my way to cultivate a safe space.
Thank you. That's well said too. I mean, I can think of several scenarios where I can tell that folks didn't practice, but again, they were at least taking the time to be bold and courageous and have the conversation. Today, I'm going to embark upon one of those opportunities. So I'm participating in an event called Talk a Mile. And in Talk a Mile, I've been invited to be paired up with a police officer in training. And so we walk a mile and we have courageous conversations. And so we're going to talk about my background and my environment, their background, their environment, and some of our decisions that's led us there. I can only imagine that it could get slightly uncomfortable for either party. So my question to you is, have you ever encountered a situation where a courageous conversation actually didn't align with your beliefs and didn't align with some of the things that you thought about, and how did you handle that?
So it's interesting that you bring up the police because I had to have a courageous conversation with a police officer many years ago. And in that conversation of having him to truly understand that he was overstepping his bounds, the one thing that I remember distinctly is that I remained calm. Every response that I had was in the same tone. It never elevated, it never got more aggressive, it never got lessened as if I was unconfident, right? But it never escalated to make him feel as if I was going to become a threat. And in this conversation, he was giving racial slurs, right? And I explained to him, I said, do you even understand the background of some of the words that you're using? You're pulling me over for a speeding ticket. You could have just gave me the ticket and had a nice day. But now I've got to be all kind of BSs and all kind of BNs and all these other negative things. And I was like, this is so unnecessary. And this was before the time where cell phone and video cameras were so very popular, right? So the way that I handled the conversation was I asked him, and it's funny that you brought that up because I haven't talked about this story to anybody in 10, 15 years. But basically, I asked him, the more he said the negative things to me, I said, who has been positive to you in your life? Who has been your most influence for you to have such disparity towards me because I have melanin in my skin? Help me to understand. And he took a pause back. He was like, what did you say to me, boy? Is exactly what he said. He said, and I repeated back to him, I said, I am somebody's child, so I'm going to let you make it with that boy. It's okay. Who has hurt you in addition to who has been a champion for you in your life, for you to come at me in such a way that my skin color offends you? And he took another pause back. And it was a white police officer. And I told him, I said, in this country, you have been at the top of the food chain for as long as slavery is. Why am I a threat to you? You could have just gave me a ticket. You came with all the negativity. So help me to understand. And as we went further through the conversation, he started using less curse words. He started using less, negative language. And as I continued to give him a chance to respond, I found out that it was something that was in his bloodline of people that were racist, right? And we actually ended up getting into a better conversation by the end of the whole ordeal, where he stopped using negative words and stopped calling me out of my name, all because I didn't change my tone. And I turned it away from him being mad at me to asking who hurt you, right? Or who has not been a champion for you to hate me because I'm a man just like you. You could have just gave me a ticket. And so it took, now I wasn't always like that, but that was after some years of maturity and being a father of 5 that, it's like, okay, me talking crazy may not be so valuable at this point. I might need to tap into another realm. But having that conversation with him, and it was about a 10, 15-minute conversation before he actually broke down and told me, my great-grandfather had slaves. My grandfather had a slave, and my father didn't like black people because he felt that they were, lazy, all the other things behind it. I said, well, I'm driving $100,000 car. I have a, great, you didn't find anything on my background or my record. What will make you indicate that I'm lazy? You didn't find anything about drugs in my car. He searched my car and everything. It's like, you didn't find anything. So why are you still feeling this way? I understand that your parents gave that to you, but when are we going to start blaming our parents for information that we can go find out on our own? We put too much emphasis on what our parents did with the best opportunity they had in their life. But once you become an adult, it's your opportunity to make sure if your parents were telling you the right thing or not, for you to research it. And by the end of the day, he still gave me the ticket, but we did walk away, with a mutual understanding that it doesn't have to be this way. And that's actually where a lot of my my diversity and inclusion training kind of started, from that incident. I was like, you know what? I never really thought about the counterparts not really knowing about the background and thinking about how they were brought up.
So much to unpack from that story. I mean, I feel like we need to have another show about this story because your level of sympathy and level of understanding at that moment for the other person. I do want to say one thing. I do think that they people who hurt people know why they're hurting people. I think they just need to ask. They do need to dig into understand why they're doing that. So then I want to make sure we understand that people know our experiences and know what we've been through, but they may have not had a personal hand experience of what those experiences have done to our community on sometimes, right? I'm the one who's experiencing that, but they definitely see it. But I thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that story in that moment. It's so telling about your personality and the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. I got chills from that story because that's such a because
that was a tough one to tell.
I work in DEI and I would not be able to do the same thing. So that is a layered story right there for sure.
I probably could say some of the words, but you know, they always say it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. I would be like, who hurt you? You know, so it's definitely taking time. And like you said, it's all about being equipped and taking the time to ask more questions and then, of course, to listen. Well, hey, y'all, we are right at time. Chef, Coach, we definitely appreciate your time and all the knowledge that you have to share. D'Angelo, I know you started the conversation with the shout out. Was that it for today?
It was, yes. Okay. You bet that, yes.
Well, fantastic. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week. I apologize. Something is in my eye, probably one of these long lashes. But please make sure you join us every weekday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your daily dose of D&B with D&B on the Black Diva Collective. Y'all have a wonderful day and an outstanding week. Thank you.